But what we're realizing is when we're starting to communicate to our past customers, we're going, guys, like support small business, support us in this time. Those people that are buying, those people that are reacting and reaching out to us, we as a company, and we as, if I tie that back into e-commerce, we need to create a cohort of these special consumers that are buying, keeping us afloat during this time.
Welcome to the Winning E-commerce Experience Show, where it's all about creating a brand that your customers love so they keep coming back. This show is brought to you by DataCue. Your store experience begins with your homepage. DataCue improves your conversion rate up to 30% by showing each visitor a personalized homepage based on their interest. And now, your host, Shahram Anver.
Hello. So our next guest today, he started with the Fidget Spinner Trend in 2017, and now fast forward to 115 direct-to-consumer brands later, he's been hands-on with growing paid media teams in-house and managing them himself. Nick Shackelford, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, man. This has been, it's happy to talk to more people during these times, you know what I mean?
I know, like it was kind of like being locked up in our houses and not really, I mean, it's really changed. I think the way we're sort of connecting is completely now online, right?
It's funny because this is kind of like how our company's kind of built, and I'm all digital all the time. And so I'm very familiar with these Zoom calls or Google Hangouts or Slack messages or Asana, you name it. And a part of my community that we're in, right? We've worked with a handful of brands, which you mentioned, and some of them, they're all old school in-house, and all their systems and processes are built in-house.
Oh man, they must be going crazy.
Well, absolutely. And I think we're wondering, okay, how do we organize this? Will you be on your computer? Of course, people are going to be on their computer more than ever.
Yeah. You know, I saw something crazy the other day that sales of spying software has gone through the roof because bosses are just hurriedly buying this stuff and installing it on their employees' computers just to make sure that they're actually working. So, way to not get what's going on and how to work from home, right?
It's so true. I mean, but again, if you think about it, if you don't have those processes built of communicating, of when to be online, of when to send those documents, of a place where all things are stored, this was definitely a big wake-up call. And I know the world that we live in, which is a lot of direct-to-consumer, a lot of customization, a lot of tailoring the message. And I think right now, we've had this back and forth, and I would love to present this to you of like how you think through this, because I know that's a lot of what the DataCue team is focused on is, do we address what it is that's happening? And if we do address it, and you're in a non-essential, meaning a product that isn't necessarily needed at this time, does that look like you're taking an opportunistic play on this? And I'll go first. I'll lead you into it because we have a handful of brands, some that are apparel, which as a collective, apparel has been taking a hit generally, or it's like hair care or self-care. Yeah. And the self-care products are actually finding themselves in a better position for the last 2-3 weeks, where after kind of like Trump and after kind of a larger United States shutdown of like, hey, please stay at home, the buying cycle hasn't really slowed. But what we've seen is these large pockets of people announcing buy X or buy a certain product and get a face mask, buy X and get this product. And I'm like, this isn't necessarily congruent with your brand.
Yeah,
you have to address it to a degree because we can't just pretend everything is all great in the world. But it is something where I think more brands nowadays have to address it to their tone, to their voice, and continue on through, because our consumers are not ignorant,
Absolutely. I mean, I think the keyword there is really empathy, right? And we've been doing a lot of thinking on our end too. And fundamentally, we're a data company. So I felt that coming up with some like random requests, like heavy discounting or just, maybe throwing in something like a face mask made no sense. So what we decided to do was really just to go out and ask our clients, look, things have changed a lot. We're fundamentally a data company, so we've got a lot of great data. Is there anything you guys need to help you make your decisions? And we're happy to do it free of charge for you to, help you figure out what you need to do. And that was, I think, met with, I'd like to think that that seemed a little bit more honest coming from me rather than saying, hey, the usual kind of emails which we've been receiving, where we really care about you, we love you, and we're doing all this stuff. It's all me, 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 me.
Mhm.
I think it made much more sense to just be like, hey, what kind of problems do you have that we are qualified to solve?
Exactly. And that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of these brands are having to do is refocus and go, how do I build a community around our product, right? Even if you're a non-essential, this is the perfect time to be aggregating and communicating, not sales, but content about how to best use your product, how to, even if you were having to build a Facebook group around the mission that you're promoting. Specifically, we have a betting company that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a product or a topic to discuss. But if you
Hmm.
think about the people that are buying this product, from mothers to single fathers to bachelors to kids in college, like they all are still coming together around this message because it's silver linen, right? So it's quote unquote self cleaning to a degree, and that community of how are you protecting your family, or how are you cleaning yourself, or how are you building a routine around being cleanly, that is something where it's now a larger discussion. It's not just about buying a single product. And most people can deem that as, why would someone want to communicate around this? Well, people want to protect themselves or protect their family. And that is a general topic that now that brand, they're called Miracle Brand, they are able to control that conversation rather than just putting it under the rug, if I may.
Yeah. And I mean, have you seen any bad examples, so to speak? I mean, that's always good to talk about, like try to see the two. Like, have you seen any egregious examples of you seeing someone doing something where you're thinking, oh man, no, don't do that?
So there was one brand, and it's called Seed. So I think it's just straight CSEED, and it's a skincare brand or a hair care brand. And they
Right.
literally showed just a plain white image on an Instagram ad, and they took the time to go, we are choosing to not advertise right now because during this time we don't need to be putting products in your face that are claiming to cure A, B, and C. Because in the world I'm in, I'm looking at ads all day. Like that's literally my job. And so I'm seeing a lot of false claims around simple products that are saying this will help you revert the sickness. This will help you combat the potential causes. And I'm like, how can you say this? What does that claim? And so for a seed to take the time and just literally show a white image and the copy below it speaking to, we're not trying to sell you, we're just trying to let you know that our product does do A, B, and C because here's our clinical backing studies. It
Right.
was received in two different ways. It was received in like, but you are currently advertising, but you're telling us you're not, because literally they're using paid media. But there's also a strong constituent that is going, thank you so much for this message. So it is a little bit polarizing, but that's, as a brand, you want your advocates, and you want to make sure you dive deeper into those that really, really love you.
Yeah, and I guess it really comes down to being authentic to your brand, right? Like I've spoken to quite a few people for this show now just to get this COVID-19 series out. And one of the like topics that's come up over and over again is don't do anything crazy. Like don't, just because things have changed doesn't mean you have to change yourself. Figure out a message that's consistent to you and speak in like your like there was this soap brand who, and they've kind of always had this tone of being very sassy. So they sent an email saying "wash your damn hands," which was totally on brand and on point, and people really loved it. But I think it really comes down to being really authentic.
Mhm. No, you're absolutely correct. And I think if you see where you are positioned in the market, or if this is an opportunistic play for you, think about the long-term results, because nobody more. This is kind of where a lot of the events on a big scale, kind of the events started canceling over here. You have Coachella, you have Stagecoach, you have large marketing events in San Diego. They they most likely they probably would have been safe, right? They
Hmm.
took the precautionary. They're screening people. They're washing their hands. A lot of antibacterial around it. Seeing like the sporting events overseas, they don't want to be the name of where something might have broken out, because now everyone's going to associate that specific product, that event, that gathering, to what had happened during this time, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you need to understand that the things that you're doing and saying right now are going to go in two different ways. One, you're going to be associated with this in a negative light, and that's never going to leave the consumer's mind. Or B, it's going to be able to drive deeper and stronger relationships into into this specific environment, and I'll speak specifically for this. So my lady and I own a women's clothing store here in Orange County.
Uh-huh.
We were doing an average between 30 to 40,000 in revenue a month. Okay.
Okay.
We are now able to do $100 today, $100 a day if we're lucky.
Oh man, that
Right?
hurts. Ouch.
No online sales because we've elected to keep everything in person, and so now that's had us to we have to obviously reshift and refocus how do we build that online side, which
Yeah.
provides a lot of downstream issues. And now we have to buy more. Now to be strategic on what we place out on the floor. But what we're realizing is when we're starting to communicate to our company or starting to communicate to our past customers, we're going, guys, like support small business, support us in this time. Those people that are buying, those people that are reacting and reaching out to us, we as a company, and we as, if I tie that back into e-commerce, we need to create a cohort of these special consumers that are buying, keeping us afloat during this time.
Yeah, and
That's a,
hopefully reward them down the line, right? With something.
absolutely. Every single time, if you're in Klaviyo, if you're MailChimp, anything that comes in, these consumers need to be tagged from the very first time you send a message about, hey, here's what we as a company are doing to address COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Every consumer after the fact that's taking action or supporting or buying from you, that's a special cohort.
Yes. And hopefully you've already got your processes in place to do this. And if not, you should already start, right? Like I think there's way too many people who've got this huge mailing list that they just dump that one email to all of them rather than segmenting and sending different messages out.
It's absolutely, because that's like you said, in the world of customization, there's no more custom than now of speaking to consumers that are supporting or speaking to those that have questions and concerns about the product that you're potentially selling. I wanted to ramble off a couple of metrics that we're looking at. So we have 4 or 5 different sources that we're using for this. I'll definitely send it to you. They're all unbiased. They aren't my data. They aren't anything here. But across the board, the average AOV, average order value, has dropped in the major markets of health and supplements, apparel. The only untouched group would be home furnishing and office furnishing, which we can all understand
Makes
why.
sense. Yeah.
But overall, we're seeing a 15 to 20% drop in AOV, which drives me to understand that consumers are a little bit more self-conscious on, and now we're primarily selling in the United States, although we do have brands that are selling worldwide. There's a lot of brands selling in the United States that this data is coming from. And it's a 15 to 20% drop in overall AOV, meaning they're a little bit more self-conscious on what they're purchasing. We have the largest amount of people that are kind of like subscribing to what does the future look like. That's not an issue. Like consumers are still going to be buying. It's the American way. We buy in times of stress and uncertainty. It's just
it's like comfort buying.
It is. It's window shopping. That's retail therapy. That's a real thing.
Right. Yeah, and the longer people stay stuck at home, I guess that's just going to keep happening, right? If you've got the finances to afford that.
Because they're shifting dollars right now. Every dollar that would have been to a kid's soccer game or every dollar that would have been to a dinner out. I mean, yes, you can still shop local technically and go buy groceries, but there's a lot of capital they would have been spending at going to football games, basketball games, soccer games, all these out. You can't go to bars and spend your money on alcohol as much anymore. Maybe you're buying that here. So it isn't necessarily a stop in consumerism, but it's a shift in consumerism.
Yeah, I think that's a very positive way of looking at it. Essentially, the spend is moving online. That's fair to say. Obviously, the spend has changed. Like looking at the numbers you talked about. So unless you're in that like beautiful, like bullseye kind of zone with home office stuff or groceries, then obviously you're going to see a dip. But I guess it's then about shifting your message and perhaps your site to try to capture that new demand.
And you're absolutely correct, because if you were to look at the overall consumers, like it's still primarily dominated by retail, and it's for whatever reason. I mean, you can fill in the bucket. I've done enough research on this; it's going to make me actually explode my brain. But predominant purchasers are still coming and buying in store, right? And for fear of putting their information online, for fear of fill in the blank, right? Whatever the older demographic you might fall within, even the younger demographic where maybe you don't have a bank card, whatever you want to say, they are forced to jump online. And me being the nerd I am, I'm sitting here trying to analyze, okay, so if I've been on Facebook for 10 to 15 years and I'm a general consumer and I generally don't buy online, and Facebook has as much data on me as humanly possible, and all of a sudden I'm having to buy online, don't you believe that there's going to be a little bit of a lag for their systems to update? Like, hey, wait, this consumer's buying online, but all of its previous behavior and data points don't show that he or she would have done that. Well, now they are. And so this brand new segment of consumers are jumping online, wishing and willing to buy and feeling more comfortable than ever. This will end, right? All of this thing that we're currently in, this opportunity that we're in, is going to definitely end. And when that does, a whole new group of consumers are really comfortable with purchasing online. How amazing is that opportunity?
Wow. I mean, and I think from an economics point of view as well, I guess like those ads and things like that are probably going to get cheaper, right? Because you're going to have a whole bunch of like a way more supply right now. And so the amount, and I think there's been quite a few people who are stopping their ad campaign. So if you just take those two together, are you seeing anything like quickly dropping CPCs on keywords?
Oh, well, bear with me 1 second. I'm literally in my ad accounts right now. And so I'm going to pull up real-time data so that I can actually speak to it. So we have about 96 of these brands to speak into.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at that, I was just thinking. I mean, if you're talking about opportunities, and it's really about like also you got to be very ROI conscious, right? I think most of the small businesses these days, I'd say, are really hurting cash flow wise. You just talked about how you went from 40K to like 100 in a day. So, I guess anything which you've got a pocket of opportunity where you know the ROI is going to be good is worth putting your money into.
Well, so a lot of absolutely, you're absolutely correct on this. And so we have across the board CPMs seeing a 60% decrease. So before, when we were looking at CPMs, they're everywhere from $7 to $14, and that's specifically the USA. If you go worldwide, it's a little bit different. Right now, what we're looking at is,
and these are like across all the keywords that you're bidding on.
So this is across all Facebook accounts that we're currently managing or a part of. So we have 93 ad accounts specific to the United States currently right now. And in these ad accounts, we're seeing a 40% decrease on average. That's the average, but we're seeing as much as $13 on one of our largest spending accounts down to $4.12.
Wow. And is there a 40% or lower increase in the conversions?
So that's the funny part, is like, although the CPMs and CPCs are all decreasing, the quality and conversion rate is not. And that's because of the consumers' shift of fear of buying. Yes, there's a small increase, but it's too nuanced for me to go across too industry specific, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, I think just from a top line perspective, that's a huge win. That's essentially saying for the same dollar I spent yesterday, if I do it today, I'm going to get 40% more results.
Absolutely. And remember, we can't, although it's really difficult to like project into the future, right now we're buying and introducing our brands and products to an audience that still is going to have to come into Christmas. We're still getting in front of these consumers in 2, 3, 4 months away that are going to have to buy a product or potentially your product, right? So our investment that we're doing into the numbers now, and we always tell our consumers at the beginning when we're getting our system set up, is like, hey, we have to buy that data. We have to buy the data. We have to buy our direction. And that's currently what we're doing now. And obviously, I don't promote that we do this at a loss, but there are brands that are able to afford the investment in the understanding of data, so that when it comes to a holiday or an offer or a specific promotion time, they're able to capitalize on this investment in this last 2 weeks, right?
Right. So is that fair to say that you see this period as an investment period, that, things are going crazy, but there are pockets of opportunity. So invest now so that you'll be in a good situation when obviously this crisis is going to be over. But, is that how you're looking at it?
I'm trying to, yes. And the reason why I'm not 100% committed to that is because there are some brands that are cash flow is serious, right? Cash flow is a serious play.
I wanted to get to that, but yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So in 2 ways, cash flow affects us in 2 different ways. The first cash flow is inventory management, whether it's sitting or we're waiting for it. China is completely back online from the brands, from the brands that we're in communication with that have deep understanding of their logistics. They are issues of fulfilling, right? The only worry that they are currently presenting is that 3PLs and fulfillment centers stateside, since they are mandating stay at home the fulfillment is actually potentially being affected or will be affected if they're not strategically set up to be distanced.
Yeah,
And
so the last mile stuff, basically, right?
yes, exactly. Like the on U.S. soil, like there is an issue of the distancing there. But if you're shipping and fulfilling from overseas, we shouldn't be seeing that experience if they are not as strict as they are over here.
Did you see that bit of news that Amazon and what was it, Instacart, the staff were actually protesting right now because they felt that the virus concerns weren't they weren't given adequate protection for that they had to keep working during this period?
See, okay, I don't doubt it. Like I look at the opportunity that those companies had at their hands,
Oh
right?
my God, I know it's, but I mean that it's just another risk, right? To talk about, just adding on to the one which you just talked about, like the last mile. I think there's a whole bunch of people working very hard to get products out, and I guess they're taking on some risks. So there is that risk there as well. That even if you've got the product, it might not be so easy getting it in the hands of your customers.
Exactly. And so we're trying to do our best to balance a lot of this. And I think as agencies, and I'll put on like the business side of mine, we've had conversations with our brands going, listen, we understand the costs, and most agencies are between $5,000 to $50,000, depending on how much they're managing or handling for a brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is, as a partner, like our job is to partner on revenue. And if it's our job to help them get through this time, if we aren't flexible on our billing, we aren't flexible on how we're looking at costs, and this brand doesn't make it through this time, we don't have that brand when it's good. So
Yeah.
it's everybody's job to really come in and go like, all right, we obviously have overhead. We obviously had to run our own business over here, but how do we flex enough so that we're okay and we make it to Q3 and Q4 and have that big celebration? So these are real conversations on a day-to-day basis that I'm trying to have with brands. I'm trying to have with other team members. I'm trying to have with other people in my community, going like, how do we approach this? Because if the small businesses or if the individual e-commerce stores aren't necessarily prepared for this, how could you have been? We, as the revenue forces, have to be partnered in that. And so that's something I'm trying to tackle now.
I like that. I think just taking on that risk. I think it's just another version of what you mentioned before, where if you, as a brand, if you message some people and they support you, you should tag them in a special group. I think it's the same thing with you being an agency and you telling your customers or your clients that, hey, like we're with you. They're going to tag you in a special group as well, because they're going to be like, hey, these guys really get it. And so we're going to stick with them.
And that's the only way about doing this. Like, I understand that there's larger teams and other companies that they may not have the luxury of doing that. I mean, I don't even want to go through the statistics on where the shift is and what's happening, but we do live in the gig economy. There's a lot of individuals and freelancers and very cost-effective ways of getting the work done still, whether you're going to outsource support the Philippines, Ukraine, South America. Like there's a lot of teams that are capable of executing, right?
Yeah.
That might be a small save during this time, but it also might force you to look at your processes and look at the necessary needs of, what is this person's role here? And I had a very interesting friend go, yeah, I used to employ a lot of my family members, and then I realized after this period of time of like reflecting where costs were, because everyone's running through their own scenarios, they were like, what are they actually doing on a day-to-day basis? And I was like, well, you probably should have analyzed that a couple months ago, but now's the perfect time to do it.
That's going to be an awkward question after they've been doing what they wanted for the last few months.
I think so. So if I were to give any like piece or information to the brands that are trying to navigate their ways through this, is just be very conscious on what your current AOV is and how can you structure your most margined products in a way that's easy for your consumers to purchase. Meaning, if you know that you can afford to discount these and still make your margin, your profit on it, consider running it at a lower price point, right? You don't have to call it a discount, but you can call it a whatever clever word that is relative to the moment right now, like the essential bundle, the essential pack, whatever you want to really tailor towards. And then think through like leveraging your email campaigns, right? Obviously, you can't spend a lot of money on user acquisition. I do think it's important to continue to invest, because it's never a good time to not market. You always should be selling. You should always be marketing. It is very cost effective now, gather those emails, right? If you can at least turn on a lead gen campaign for email captures, that's going to be very important come a month, 2 months, 3 months when we're through these things together. That is where we're pushing a lot of our brands and educating the market on. Drive to a landing page, get that information, provide something free if possible, or look to do some collaborations with the influencers that you're currently working with. They're going to create content. Everyone's home already. They might as well create content in their house. The second is think through what type of product could lead, or think through developing the next product during this time. Meaning, if you reach out to the community and ask them, hey, we know that this is a time for us to come together as a community. Help us create our next thing. What's the colorway? How do you distract them? How do you give them something to think about and get them bought into your brand and product? Now they're invested into it. Guess what? You'll be the first person we're going to reach out to as soon as we create product ABC with this SKU. That's a great conversation to have.
Yeah, and especially even right now, I think there's a lot of e-commerce companies who could probably just tweak their product portfolio already, even without waiting, right? If like I spoke to a brand just a while ago who they do stationery, and then they figured out that since people are stuck at home with their kids, well, why don't we do some pre-printed stationery that people can, sketch on or doodle on and things like that, and it's working.
Wow.
It doesn't mean that you have to wait for the next, like, obviously that's a good idea as well, but you could even do it right now.
Absolutely. If you have the ability to do so, this is the time to create the conversation. We are stuck at home on their phone, and we even started sharing. I did a small little case study in my own personal one, where they show different images and it equals like a math, and equals numbers, right?
Right.
Like a shoe is 20 plus 20 plus 20, and it's all shoes. And you can implement the brand's products and have it be a shareable way of communicating. They have, what was your guess? What do you think this number could be if you just implement some of your brand product? That's a little bit of shareable. That's organic. That could go around without any effort other than you cut and pasting on some Canva ads.
So basically, I think, just to maybe quickly summarize, because I think we talked about quite a lot there. If you're having cash flow issues, I guess the number one thing you've been talking about is discount, or do whatever you have to do to get your products out the door so you've got some money coming in, right? I guess that would be, say, priority one. And then you should, like, whatever that you can invest and spend, do not forget about your customer acquisition. So like the cheapest thing you could do is probably get a lead list together with emails, but it could go all the way up to Facebook ad campaigns, Google ad campaigns, what have you. But first get your cash flow in order, but don't forget about customer acquisition. Does that sound about right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think speaking specifically to Facebook, as it's speaking to Facebook, it is getting as cheap as possible. The last time we saw numbers like this was 2015.
Amazing. Wait, what happened in 2015? Remind me again.
There were just not enough people advertising right now. We have the large movie spenders not in. We have a large travel spenders not in. We have a large branded dollar. So there's a lot of these spenders that usually spend. And we have a lot of the drop shipping brands that aren't necessarily able to get e-packet or shipping, because DHL and these other manufacturing and shipping companies aren't able to get product out in time, which means you can't necessarily, some people do, but if you're selling a drop shipping product, you have no visibility into where it's coming from. They're going to be going into a very, very deep hole that allows them to no longer be advertising, or they're going to risk getting their brand and product shut down.
That's true. I mean, it's good you brought up the example about travel, right? I think if you're in travel or in industry like that, that's been so completely hit, what advice do you have for them? Because I mean, it doesn't make any sense to do any of the advice that we just talked about, like tweaking a product or anything like that.
No. So if I was in that space specifically, I would be purely lead gen and investing in what are you going to do when you get off of this quarantine? That's the only shifting the conversation. But
forget 2020, 2021.
It's plain and simple. Like I wouldn't probably spend if I have dollars to spend and it was allocated accordingly, I'd be investing it in building the community or the largest email list possible, knowing that I'm going to be talking about the places and the sales and the deals that are going to be coming, because there's no way to get around it right now.
Yeah. Another really clever thing I've seen is nostalgia, and people are using that pretty effectively. Like I'm a big cricket fan. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the same with every live sports fan, but like all these sites are dead. And one of my favorite sites, what they've started doing is they've picked like very historic games, and they're sort of doing a live commentary as if it's happening right now. So anyone who's logging into that live sports site right now still has some content to go through. So you could apply that idea to anything, right? Like even if it's travel, you could ask some people, hey, like once this thing is over, where do you see yourself going? What are your trips that you did which you really love? Blah blah blah. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I see that too. We have a lot of people in our community that are now live streaming video games or simulations of NBA 2K or NFL games. Like they're just streaming it and putting commentary over it. So I hear you on that. I think there's a lot of clever ways that you have to kind of dig into your team and dig into the brain bank, but this is definitely an opportunity for those that are willing to invest that time.
So I guess the lesson to be learned here is adapt and get creative, because the rules have changed. So it's sort of like an open field right now to make the new rules.
I think that's a great way to end it. That's a great point.
Hey, this has been a really, really good chat, Nick. I really appreciated it. I especially love the positivity. I think that's exactly what we need to spread out in the world right now.
Amen. Thank you for the opportunity, man. This has been great.
Hey, so I'm pretty sure people are going to have questions for you. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. Oh, of course. So my name is Nick Shackelford again. You can find me on Instagram as I am Nick Shackelford, and on Twitter is just I am Shackelford. I love all things digital, social. This is my jam. Nothing to sell, nothing to pitch. Just if you guys want to talk social, if you have questions on your specific e-commerce brand, I know it's really difficult to give overall blanketed strategies, but if you have any specifics, I'm more than welcome to communicate. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. I'm sure like from this conversation, I think a lot of people are going to be motivated to talk to you. So thanks a lot again, Nick.
Of course, brother. Have a great day.
You too. You're still here, which means you definitely enjoyed that conversation. This is a special COVID-19 e-commerce miniseries to help small business merchants out there get prepared. We're doing a lot more of these, so be the first to know whenever there's a new episode. Just follow DataCue, that's DATACUE on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Stay safe out there, everybody. Till next time, this is Shahram.